All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Imagine for a second you're stepping into the shoes of a senior central banker sitting right in front of a massive, complex economic control panel. Suddenly, a red light starts flashing. Your country's balance of payments, the BOP, is in a severe deficit. Money is literally pouring out faster than it's coming in. So how do you fix it? Well, today, we're going to diagnose that flashing red ledger and walk through the 9 specific recovery tools you have at your disposal to pull your economy right back from the brink.
We basically have 4 primary dials to turn on our macroeconomic dashboard: value adjustments, trade controls, state substitution, and macro steering. Let's just jump right into that first dial.
Section 1, Dial 1, Value Adjustments. This module is all about tweaking the actual value of our currency. So if we look at our first lever, depreciation, this kicks in under a flexible exchange rate system. We basically let market forces automatically drop the currency's value. Think of it like this. Say $1 used to exchange for 50 rupees, but now boom, it shifts to 55 rupees. Our currency just depreciated. And what does this actually do? Well, it immediately makes foreign imports way costlier in our domestic currency, which naturally suppresses demand for them. But at the exact same time, our exporters are raking in more domestic currency for every single dollar they make. That means they can afford to drop the prices of their exports on the global market, making them super competitive.
Now, what's really fascinating is the contrast with our second lever, which is devaluation. Devaluation hits the exact same target, making imports expensive and exports cheaper, but it's completely deliberate. It happens via an official action by us, the central bank, under a fixed exchange rate system. Assuming demand and supply are elastic, actively devaluing our currency like this will rapidly shrink that deficit.
But, as central bankers, we have to ask ourselves, what happens when these currency tweaks just aren't enough to fully balance the ledger? Sometimes, simply making imports more expensive doesn't actually stop people from buying them. And that brings us to our next set of tools.
Moving on to Dial 2, Trade Controls. This is where we directly manage the physical flow of goods right at our borders. Here, we pair Lever 3, Import Control, directly with Level 4, Export Promotion. On the import side, we can use physical quotas or slap on tariff duties to keep incoming goods in check. On the export side, though, we pull out absolutely all the stops. We're talking reducing export duties, handing out tax exemptions, giving cash assistance, and even actively promoting tourism. And you might be wondering, why tourism? Well, because a foreign tourist spending their money inside our country actually counts as an export of services. There is a really crucial, subtle distinction within these import controls, though. You might be wondering whether it's better to use quotas or tariffs. Well, the text rule here lays it out perfectly. Import quotas are actually way more effective. Why? Because a quota directly caps the sheer physical volume of goods allowed into the country. Tariffs, on the other hand, are a lot less certain since they only act indirectly by jacking up prices. If consumers are still perfectly willing to pay that higher tariff price, those imports are going to keep flowing right in, and our BOP deficit isn't going anywhere. All right, Dial 3, State Substitution. This is where indirect methods get tossed aside for heavy-handed, direct state intervention. Here we have Lever 5, Exchange Control, and this is a pretty dramatic step. The government essentially commands all foreign currency dealings. We legally mandate that all exporters must surrender and sell their foreign exchange earnings directly to us at the central bank. Importers then have no choice but to come to us to buy foreign exchange. By hoarding all the currency ourselves, we can strictly ration it, completely blocking out luxury goods and only funding the absolute bare-bones essentials. We then pair that intense rationing with Lever 6, which is backing the local production of import substitutes. Think about it. If we're severely restricting imports, our citizens still desperately need goods, right? So the government steps up and encourages domestic industries to start producing those exact same items we used to bring in from overseas. This is a massive short-run strategy to completely replace the use of imports and save our precious foreign exchange reserves. But what if the problem is totally systemic? What if our citizens just have too much cash on hand and they're buying up absolutely everything, domestic and imported, driving up inflation and just wrecking our deficit? In that case, we need to cool down the entire domestic economy to stop the bleeding. And that brings us to Dial 4, Macro Steering. This is our final and absolutely most powerful control module. Lever 7 is all about activating monetary policy. As the central bank, we have the power to shrink the volume of credit floating around in the economy. We do this by hiking up the bank rate, selling off approved securities in the open market, and raising the cash reserve ratio, or CRR. This trifecta immediately shoots up interest rates and squeezes the availability of credit. And the result? Consumers borrow less and producers invest a lot less. That drop in investment shrinks overall domestic income, which ultimately slashes the demand for imports. We are literally, deliberately slowing down our own economy just to save our balance of payments.
Meanwhile, over on the fiscal policy side, lever 8, the government steps in to back us up. They do this by simultaneously hiking taxes to slash the public's disposable income, basically leaving everyone with less money to blow on imported goods. And at the exact same time, the government brutally cuts its own spending, which directly reduces the state's demand for imports. It's basically a highly synchronized, nationwide tightening of the belt.
Finally, if we've yanked all these other levers and we still absolutely need to bridge a short-term gap, we reach for lever 9, capital imports. We can borrow short-run capital from individuals, other foreign governments, or massive international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank to correct the imbalance. Or alternatively, we can lure in foreign private capital by hiking our domestic interest rates or offering some really attractive tax concessions to foreign investors. This brings in a massive, immediate influx of foreign currency to finally stabilize that ledger.
Achieving final equilibrium. It all comes down to carefully manipulating these 9 levers on our macroeconomic dashboard. Through all of this chaos, we have to always remember the golden rule of our ledger, clearly stated right in our guiding texts. Credit means money flowing into the country, and debit means money flowing out of the country. Money flowing into the country is always beneficial and results in a favorable BOP. Capturing that inward flow and desperately minimizing that outward bleed is the ultimate, absolute goal of every single adjustment we make on this dashboard.
So now that you know exactly how this economic control panel works and you've seen the 9 distinct measures to correct a disequilibrium, the real challenge begins. Every single economy is unique, and pulling the wrong lever at the wrong time, well, that can trigger a full-blown recession. So I'm going to leave you with this thought. If you were the one sitting in the central banker's chair tomorrow morning, staring down a massive, terrifying deficit, which of these 9 levers would you pull first to save your economy?